welcome back to Operation Evil. I'm your host, Nyoka.
And I am your co-host, Megan.
And just a reminder, we want to thank you all for listening to us all the time. Thank you.
Thank you very
And
much.
we have, I'll just mention this on both episodes because one of these people might be the Patreon episode, but we do have a new Patreon member that I want to give a shout out to. And her name is Justice. Welcome, Justice. We are so happy to have you. And this is going to be Megan's episode, so I'll let you take it away and tell us the title of it and all that good stuff.
All right. So, whatever episode number this is going to be, or a Patreon episode, not sure yet, it is called Tonya Jackson and Tatiana Dykes. Can evidence speak to the Long Island serial killer?
Ooh.
So let me just give you the background on what I was thinking when I chose this. I am the type of person that if I see a missing persons flyer come across Facebook, I immediately share it, or I'm constantly up Nyoka's butt. Hey, can we share this to the Operation Evil page? Even though I have full permissions to do that, I still want to ask. I don't. I'm co-host. I know.
Hey.
I know my role. Okay.
Go for it.
But I'm always I always look and I see what is happening now and what's in the news now and how could we possibly help through this podcast. If sharing a certain, Crime Stoppers picture or something like that will help. So that's kind of where this came from. I saw a picture of Tonya and Tatiana on Crime Stoppers, and it was on the Crime Stoppers. I believe the Instagram was coming through on the Facebook. So I don't have Instagram. I don't know how that works. I know I'm probably showing my age right there, but it came across and it was their Instagram post through Facebook. And I'll read bits and pieces of it here coming up. But I saw it and I was like, very intrigued because they were talking about the evidence and how old the evidence was, but yet they had a new development in the case. So that's what brings us to now.
I
So
love when things like that happen, when it's an old case and then
this
new
is,
evidence pops up.
yes, this is very old. So it's very interesting and there's a lot of twists and turns in this I was not expecting. Like I was expecting to talk about Tonya and Tatiana and maybe find family for them or something, but that's not how this story went at all. So bear with me. There's a lot to this. I do want to say we're going to start with the audio from an interview with a detective on the cold case.
Were you here when the bin was still here, or did you view the bin?
No, actually, my partner and I carried the bin out.
You carried the bin out of here?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
And put it into the morgue wagon, and then went to the morgue afterwards to see when they opened it up. We didn't open it up here. We opened it up inside the Nassau County morgue. And that's when we discovered that it was, a female torso.
So that is linked, Nyoka, for you with the minutes and everything.
Okay, perfect.
All right. So Tonya Jackson and Tatiana Dykes are both victims of a homicide cold case, which could be linked to the Gilgo Beach serial killings. Now, mind you, like I said, Tonya and Tatiana, when I was looking at the Crime Stoppers, had nothing about the Gilgo Beach serial killings. So I want you to know, as I was digging through, the Gilgo Beach serial killings popped up. Lo and behold, there's a Gilgo Beach serial killer documentary on, I think it was Netflix. There's another one coming out on Peacock. So I had no idea when I started digging into this. So it dives in deep. So bear with me. So the Gilgo Beach serial killings are also known as the Long Island serial killer. So again, another little sidetrack, expedition there, which is presumed to have started in the 1990s along the south shore of Long Island. Tonya and Tatiana, their identification was actually made April 25th, 2025. So April of this year was their ID. But if you notice, I said this all started in the 90s. So again, bear with me. My attention was drawn to this case when I spotted the recent information taken from the Instagram of Nassau County PD in New York, and that it's the actual Crime Stoppers post that states that in June 1997, remains of the 26-year-old victim, Tonya Jackson, were located at Hempstead Lake State Park in Lakeview. In April 2011, remains of a 2-year-old victim, Tatiana Dykes, were located along Gilgo Beach. So there was miles between the two, okay?
Did you say a 2-year-old?
Yes.
Oh, man.
Bear with me, dude, because this is so strange. So Tatiana Dykes is the daughter of Tonya Jackson. Tonya Jackson drove a black 1991 Geostorm similar to the one of the vehicle that's pictured in the Instagram post that we'll have on the feed here. The thing is that I just want to remember this, that Tonya was found in 1997, never identified. Okay. Tatiana, the daughter, the 2-year-old, her remains were found in 2011. Again, never identified until April of this year. So that's what kind of, got my brain going, like, this is what I want to cover. Let's see if we can help these individuals or their families. They're looking for them, but then come to find out their remains were actually found in 97 and 2011. And here we are still screaming for help here. So here we go. The Crime Stoppers post requests that if you had any interaction or any information regarding either of these two individuals, to please contact the Nassau County Crime Stoppers at 1-800-244-TIPS. So if Tanya's remains were found in 1997 and Tatiana's in 2011, 14 years later, why are there new reports as of April 25th, 2025, another 14 years later, which identification was made public? So let's discuss. Here's the summary. Tonya Jackson, 26, was found dismembered in Hempstead Lake State Park in Lakeview, New York on June 28, 1997. Her 2-year-old daughter, Tatiana Dykes, was found about 20 miles away along Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach in April 2011. At the time they were both found, there was no link between them, nor known names or identification. Authorities had long identified Jackson as Peaches, which was a nickname drawn from a tattoo that was found on Jackson's torso. Now, remember, she was dismembered. While Tatiana had been referred to as Baby Doe. Stephen Fitzpatrick of the Nassau County Police homicide detective said that the two weren't genetically linked until 2015 via DNA analysis. The case was later turned over to the FBI, whose forensics experts were able to identify the bodies. Jackson was a single mother at the time of her death, living in Brooklyn's Sunset Park neighborhood. She served honorably as a U.S. Army veteran between 1993 to 1995. According to Fitzpatrick, the detective, she was possibly employed at a doctor's office in a medical assistant capacity while living in Brooklyn. While she was going to work, it was reported to police that there might have been a female friend or neighbor who would watch the baby. Nassau County officials are asking the public for help in an ongoing investigation into their deaths. The unsolved nature of their case has drawn speculation that they also could be victims in what is known as the Gilgo Beach killings. Police began investigating the deaths of at least 10 people, mostly sex workers, in late 2010. The bodies were found along an isolated highway not far from Gilgo Beach on Long Island. I have a few photos to share of actual Gilgo Beach and where some of the bodies were found. And I also have a picture of the Gilgo Beach investigation that actually points out the specific areas where the bodies were found, just to give reference.
So this is like a serial killer type thing.
You got it.
But she was dismembered, and that's kind of personal.
So you're going to find out a lot in this. And there's, like I said, a lot of twists and turns. There's other people involved. I don't know why I keep grabbing these ones where I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this one. And then come to find out it's like 15 killings and 4 different people. And I don't even know what, but I do. And for some reason, this one kind of led down the same path. Also, when I was doing my research, I had not watched the Gilgo Beach documentary yet. Like, I had not watched it. My notes are a little bit different than that. I have a little bit different of a take than the actual documentary has.
I have not
I'll
watched that
talk
either.
about that. I'll talk about that as I like get into that part, but I what they touched on is not something I want to touch on. Let's just put it that way. Okay.
Okay.
So the investigation led to the arrest of an architect named Rex Hewerman in 2023. He's been charged in 7 alleged murders and has denied all involvement in the deaths. Okay, now at this point in time, he has not been linked to Tonya or Tatiana. Okay. Still, Fitzpatrick insisted that the investigation into the deaths of Jackson and her daughter will look at all possibilities. Quote, although Tonya and Tatiana have commonly been linked to the Gilgo Beach serial killings because of the timing and locations of their recovered remains, we are not discounting the possibility that their cases are unrelated from that investigation. End quote. That came from Fitzpatrick, the detective. So, how does this all tie together? Again, going back to Tanya's story, Tonya Denise Jackson, nicknamed Peaches before her identification, was a young woman who is believed to have been murdered by the Long Island serial killer between June 25th and June 28th, 1997. She was most likely the killer's third or fourth known murder victim. As we know, as of April of this year, her daughter Tatiana Dykes was also murdered. Tonya was born on October 22nd, 1970 in Alabama. At an unknown time, she became estranged from her family, and she served in the U.S. Army between 93 and 95. On March 17th, 1995, while in Texas, Tonya gave birth to her daughter Tatiana. We know that at the time of their murders, Tonya and Tatiana were living in Brooklyn, New York, where Tonya worked in the medical field. These are all facts we learned from Crime Stoppers. And then, as I dug into more, let's take another step back in time. On June 28th, 1998, a hiker, his daughter, and some friends discovered a dismembered human torso wrapped in garbage bags in a Rubbermaid container in a wooded area of Hempstead Lake State Park in Lakeview, New York. Searches of the area yielded no additional evidence or remains, and her cause of death was undetermined. When the torso was examined, police discovered the woman had a distinctive peach tattoo, hence her nickname Peaches prior to Tanya's identification, and that was found on her left breast. Additionally, a horizontal surgical scar was noted on her abdomen, possibly being from a cesarean section. On March 3rd, 2007, a suitcase containing a female torso was discovered, washed up in Mamaroneck, New York. Her legs were later found washed up on separate beaches. Due to a tattoo found above her right breast, she was nicknamed Cherries. Due to the similar tattoos and disposal of the remains, it was suspected whoever murdered Peaches may have also murdered Cherries. The link was never confirmed, yet remains a plausible theory today, especially after later developments. Jumping to July 6, 2007, Maureen Brainerd Barnes was 25. She was the first of the Gilgo Four to disappear. She had been working as an escort in New York City when she vanished in July 2007. Maureen is often referred to as the first of the Gilgo Four. She went missing in July 2007. She was a single mother of 2 living in Norwich, Connecticut, and she had begun working as an escort, posting ads on Craigslist and other websites to meet clients. On July 6, 2007, her cell phone was contacted by a burner cell phone, which, if you know what a burner cell phone is, it's a prepaid phone that anyone can buy and use anonymously. Between July 6th and July 9th, there were 16 interactions between the caller using a burner phone and Brainerd Barnes' cell phone. Side note, her family reported her missing, but it took years for her to be placed on the missing persons because of the nature of her work, being an escort. July 8th, I know. July 8th, 2007, Melissa Cann says her sister Maureen's death is always in the back of her mind. Quote, it's really, really hard. I miss her so much, end quote. Maureen's sister Missy Cann received a call from Maureen late at night from Penn Station in Midtown Manhattan. In an interview in 2020, Cann told 48 Hours that Maureen said she was going to take the train at midnight. Cann never saw or heard from Maureen again. On May 1st, 2010, Shannon Gilbert disappears. Shannon Gilbert, 23, was working as an escort. In the early morning hours of May 1st, 2010, Gilbert made a frantic phone call to 911. She had been at a client's home, his name, Joseph Brewer to be exact, on Long Island, and said she believed someone was after her. Her driver, Michael Peck, went in to see if she was okay, but got the feeling she was setting him up, so he left. She took off running, fleeing to the neighbor's house. There is audio here that needs to be inserted, and it's from the 911 call of her running to the neighbor's house. You actually hear what's transcribed.
I love 911 calls.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there's somebody after me. I'm sorry? There's somebody after me. Where are you? There's somebody after me. Okay, where are you? There's somebody after me. Where are you, ma'am? I don't know. Are you driving right now? No, I'm inside the house. I'm sorry? I'm inside the house. What house? I don't know. Can you check where I am? I'm sorry? Can you check where I am? No, I can't. What's your callback number you're calling from? Huh? What phone number are you calling from? Somebody's asking me. Please. Are you in Suffolk County or Nassau County? I'm in Long Island. Where on Long Island are you? No. 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 No, stop, no. Where in Long Island are you? Suffolk County? Nassau County? Huh? Why? Why didn't you call me by my name? Why? Can you on the line? Stop. Please. Stop it, please. Please stop. Please. Can you turn it off? Please. Please. No, please. Please. Why? Please stop. No, stop it, please. Hello? Hello? Please. What's the problem? What's the matter? What happened? Hello? Please, get me out of here, please. Hello? You're being sarcastic about this. You're part of it all along.
So you just heard the audio of her stating to 911 that they're going to kill her. She had called 911 prior to running to the neighbors, and by neighbor, I mean a good couple blocks away, to Gus Koleth's house. There's another audio here of his call to 911. So the audio you just heard here explains her running to various neighbors who in turn call 911. The total time lapse on 911 was 23 minutes.
Wow.
The neighbor saw her running down the street toward a black truck, then Gilbert vanished. Side note, both Joseph and Michael were questioned, but nothing turned up on them. So Joseph Brewer, who was the one who hired her, and then Michael Peck, who was her pimp, I guess, they were questioned, but nothing ever turned up on them. And they actually appear, well, Joseph really doesn't, but Michael does appear in an interview in the documentary. Police would do an exhaustive search for Gilbert. Months passed without a sign of the missing woman. And then in December 2010, near Gilgo Beach, a police officer and his canine Blue found human remains, but it wasn't Gilbert. Instead, they found the bodies of 4 women. None of Shannon. Okay? So here we go. December 2010. This is the introduction to the Gilgo 4. The Gilgo 4 are Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Amber Costello, Megan Waterman, and Melissa Bartholomew. Melissa's from Buffalo, by the way. Police found the bodies of 4 women near Gilgo Beach on New York's Long Island. The women became known as the Gilgo 4 and were identified as Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Amber Costello, Megan Waterman, and Melissa Bartholomew. Police say all the women were petite and 3 of them were wrapped in burlap. Police began their hunt to find a serial killer. The cause of death was asphyxiation by strangulation. The bodies were dismembered on top of the ground. Now, mind you, these people had went missing well before 2010. Their missing persons status was all different. They had, some of the parents tried to report them missing and they were told, nope, sorry, can't do that, whatever. So it wasn't until Shannon Gilbert's disappearance that there was a push for Shannon to be found, which is what in turn ended up finding these 4 women. So just throwing that out there. Dominic Verone, who was Suffolk County chief of detectives at the time, said there were striking similarities among the Gilgo 4. Quote, very petite, 5 foot or under, 100 pounds. The women were also all in their 20s and were all working as online escorts, end quote. He claimed that prostitution wasn't as open as it was and that everything had gone underground with the use of the internet.
Okay.
So before 2010, before Shannon's disappearance, which triggered the search, which triggered the finding of the bodies, July 2009, there was the disappearance of Melissa Bartholomew. She was 24. She moved from Buffalo, New York to New York City to work as a hairdresser. At some point, she began working as an escort. In July of 2009, nearly 2 years to the day that Brainerd Barnes went missing, Bartholomew disappeared. July 17th, 2009, in the weeks following Bartholomew's disappearance, police say her then 15-year-old sister Amanda received a series of phone calls from a man calling from Melissa's cell phone. The first of these calls came on July 17th, 2009 at approximately 12:40 p.m. A number of calls followed in the coming weeks, and in one, the caller actually told Amanda he had killed Melissa and exactly how. There were 7 calls in total, and the police tracked the calls to Manhattan and had street video and was trying to figure out who was actually talking on the phone. But there were so many people walking around with phones to their ears that the surveillance was absolutely worthless. The man on the other end of the phone line would talk about violence more than sex, so it definitely fit the power and control, that hungry serial killer mentality. Side note, the family tried to immediately file a missing persons report, but the police said because of the nature of her work, they couldn't until day 10.
No, that's awful. I'm sorry. Just because they did that for a living doesn't make them less of a person.
Mm-hmm. She was most likely alive at that point, by the way, when they were trying to put out the missing persons.
Mm-mm.
So June 5th, 2010 was Megan Waterman. She was 22. She was the youngest of the 4 victims whose bodies were discovered near Gilgo Beach. Megan was last seen on June 6, 2010, leaving a Holiday Inn Express. They actually have the footage of that on the documentary of her walking out, and that's the last appearance of her ever. Megan Waterman, 22, was a mother from Scarborough, Maine, and was also working as an escort. Her driver, Pimp, took her to calls but never stayed with her. He went into the hotel room, but she was already gone, and she didn't take her phone either. On June 5th, 2010, she was contacted by the burner phone, which had just been activated that same day. June 6, 2010, Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harris released video, never seen by the public, of a lobby of the Holiday Inn Express on June 4th and 6th in 2010. Seen in a yellow top is Megan Waterman in her final hours. At 1:31 a.m., Waterman's phone was again contacted by the same burner phone as the day before. Security video showed Waterman leaving the Holiday Inn Express in Long Island around the same time. And again, this was the last time she was seen. She had a 3-year-old daughter that she left behind at the time. September 2nd, 2010, Amber Costello, 27, disappeared in September of 2010 after she left her home on Long Island to meet a client. Her roommate, Dave Shaler, said she was an amazing person. Amber Costello, a 27-year-old escort living on Long Island, had a heroin addiction, so she went after the fast money deals. She was contacted by someone using a burner phone, go figure. She did not take her phone, even though her roommate insisted that she did. So if you notice the pattern here too, these women aren't taking their phones. They know better, but they're still not taking their phones, which makes me think that they trusted this man. So I'm just throwing that out there.
And how you're throwing out a lot of dates. Is this how many victims per year, or how many years in between? Is there
So
a
this
pattern
is-
there?
There is no pattern there.
Oh,
There
okay.
is no pattern with the dates. The only pattern that I had mentioned was the 14 years between the mother and the daughter being found at the beginning.
Okay.
But other than that, there's no significance to the dates other than these women all went missing well before Shannon Gilbert and were missing on the missing persons. Nobody ever went to go and identify bodies or go search for these girls until Shannon Gilbert's death in 2010. So you have all of these missing persons. No one's going to find them because of the nature of their work
Mm-hmm.
until Shannon Gilbert's mom really presses law enforcement and says, you need to go find my daughter. And that's when these bodies turn up. And
Wow.
that's only 4. So I'm getting to more here.
There's more?
Oh, yeah. So after Costello's disappearance, police say her roommate, Dave Scheller, told them about her clients, and he described one of them looking like an ogre, and he had a first-generation Chevy Avalanche. He even said, dude, you better look at this dude, because there was something wrong with this dude, because Dave and her boyfriend, Amber's boyfriend at the time, actually got in a fight with this dude and had to, like, fight him out the door. So it's crazy. This whole thing is nuts because this guy probably could have gotten stopped well before all of this. He says the client got Costello, an experienced escort, to do something she never did, leave home without her purse or cell phone, and meet him in his car. At nearly midnight, Shaler says Costello left the house, walked down the street, and he never saw her again.
Detectives there that told me that my sister had positively been identified through DNA. And I knew. I had prepared myself the whole time. I knew. But of course, the first emotion is like, you just don't want to hear it.
But Dave did tell the police. He did tell the police that there was something odd about that guy. But he had a good description. He had a good description of the person, the man, his appearance, and what he drove. So just keep that in mind. December 16th, 2010, there was a Gilgo Beach search throughout the spring of 2011. Investigators continued a wide-ranging search for Shannan Gilbert. So again, no one else was their search party. Shannan Gilbert's mom had to beg and beg and beg and beg and push and push and push. And by Shannon's mom doing that, the other moms all came together to push for the investigators to go and search for the girls. On April 11th, 2011, searchers discovered a skull, arm bones, partial leg bones, and a plastic bag in Jones Beach State Park, New York. Additionally, 2 gold bracelets were also found with the remains. There's no cause of death could be determined. By the end of 2011, there were no leads that were generated in the case, and the remains found in 2011 were not tied to Peach's torso yet. So they had no idea that Peaches in 2011 belonged to Jane Doe and number 3. They had no idea that the baby and this person, this woman, Tonya, they had no idea that they were linked together by DNA. May 2011. 6 more sets of remains were discovered.
Oh my God.
I have the picture of the Suffolk County map of the serial killer's victims. I have their faces. I have the ones that still have yet to be identified on here. So you guys will all be able to see the faces of everybody, the victims. One was also an unidentified Asian male. He was also thought to be a sex worker, and he was found wearing women's clothing. The toddler was the furthest, furthest east, and Amber Costello was the furthest west. I hope I'm saying that right. I might have my directions skewed. But anyways, by May 2011, police had discovered 6 more sets of remains in the area, and that brought the total to 10 sets of remain, and that included the Gilgo 4. Investigators were not sure if the same serial killer was responsible for all the murders. Side note, investigators actually reached out to a known serial killer. His name was Roughneck. So apparently, not too far from here, a guy got caught. I don't know if he had killed her prior to or whatever. I didn't look into it because there was so much with this one already. But they ended up asking him because he disposed of the bodies almost in not an identical manner, but in the same kind of fashion. And they wanted to profile him. And he said, well, if he's burying these women with burlap, he's probably like a contractor or some builder or something, or a gardener or something.
Oh my gosh, just like a movie or like Criminal Minds.
Right? So they did do that. They said, who do you think did it? So anyways, he stated that because of the burlap, it's a contractor or a gardener or builder or something like that. The victim number 5 was Jessica Taylor, and she was an escort who went missing in 2003.
Hold on, let me stop you for a second. Without like giving it away, is this serial killer kind of like on track with this?
Oh yeah.
That's wild. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So victim number 5, of course, we don't know any of these victims at this point in time, okay? But just remember, Shannan Gilbert went missing in 2010. Megan and Amber went missing around the same time frame, but it wasn't until Shannon's mom said, I don't care what the hell my daughter did for a living. We need to go and find her. And then the other moms of the Gilgo 4 came with her and said, we need to find our girls, okay? So now you've got girls who were missing since 2003. 2000, 1996, 1997, and so on. Okay. So victim number 5, Jessica Taylor. She was an escort who went missing in 2003. Another set of remains police called Jane Doe number 6 has now been identified as Valerie Mack, who also worked as an escort and went missing in 2000. Number 7, the investigators surprised they found a toddler girl who we now know as Tatiana. Number 8 was an Asian male dressed in women's clothing who was likely beaten to death. Number 9 was a female skull belonging to Karen Vergata, an escort who disappeared in 1996. Number 10, female remains from a victim that cops nicknamed Peaches because of the tattoo on her torso, which we now know is Tonya. Although her remains were found 6 miles away, police say that the DNA has confirmed that Peaches, who is Tonya, is also the mother of the toddler who was Jane Doe number 3, but we now know as Tatiana.
Peaches must have been doing some escort work, like on the down low.
Something happened. But hang on.
Okay, sorry.
All victims here had a link to the sex trade, except we don't know about Tonya. Although I don't know if that's true for Tonya and her baby, there's not much known at this point. I do have a little bit more information on Tonya, but there's not much to know about her, believe it or not.
Oh, no.
In December 13, 2011, a year and a half after she went missing, police found Shannan Gilbert's belongings. Her purse, cell phone, shoes, and even her jeans were found in the marsh 8 miles from Gilgo Beach. A week later, her skeletal remains were found about a quarter mile from her belongings. Investigators are not convinced Shannan was murdered and theorize that she may have died of hypothermia or possible drowning. Another article stated she may have gotten lost in the marshland and died from exposure or accidental drowning. So one thing I do want to say about Shannan, when you listen to the audio, you don't have to include this if you don't want to in the actual podcast, but just so you know, in the actual audio that we played, it's Shannan in the 911 call. She sounds like she's not in her right mind. But it also sounds as if she is almost like being, I don't want to say led on. What's the word? Like being deceived in a way that she doesn't know who to believe. And you just know she's running from somebody, but it's almost like she doesn't even know who she's running from. So she sounds like she's out of it.
Okay.
She's not known to do heroin or anything like that I know of. It wasn't portrayed as that. The only one that I knew that had a really bad drug problem at this point was Amber. But Shannan just on the 911 call just sounds very disoriented. So maybe this theory would jive. I don't know. Okay, moving on.
Did you say they were all dismembered too?
Yes.
Was the toddler dismembered?
I don't know much about the toddler,
Okay.
about her body and how it was found.
But only one toddler.
Yes.
That
correct.
had to be like collateral damage.
Something happened. Yeah. They still have not tied Tatiana and Tonya to this. They have not ruled it out, though, either. Suffolk County Police Department released the full audio of Shannan's 21-minute 911 call on May 1st, 2010. Now, if you recall, I said the whole lapse in time on 911 was 23 minutes. That also included the 2 neighbors' calls. One of the neighbors actually let her in the house. That was Gus. And then another neighbor didn't let her in the house. She was pounding on the door, and that was the last person to have seen her. Like that was the last contact she tried to make with anybody. But she was a female and didn't let her in. She was scared. The same audio you heard earlier in this episode was that of her disappearance on the morning of May 1st, 2010. Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison said in an interview that Gilbert's death was likely not a murder. Quote, "It's an unfortunate incident, but right now we believe that she just ran into the marsh and unfortunately drowned," end quote. Now, I don't know if I talk about this in my actual notes, but I don't know if it's from the documentary or if it's from another article that I read, but Shannan's belongings, that included her jeans, that included her clothing, her purse, everything was there like in a pile. You know what I'm saying? So she got naked to get in this marsh.
Okay.
So think about that. I don't know if that jives, but apparently when you get hypothermia, that you start taking off your clothes because of the body temperature thing. So I guess I don't know. I don't know, Nyoka. I just still think it's odd.
But she was dismembered, though, right?
She wasn't.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. No. Shannon was not
confused.
dismembered. Tatiana was, and all the other girls were.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yes. No, Shannon was not dismembered.
Okay.
In December 2016, it was announced that Jane Doe number 3 and Peaches were confirmed to be the same person. Additionally, they announced that another set of remains found on Gilgo Beach. Those were Baby Doe, and that was the child of Peaches. Baby Doe was found a week before the second set of remains belonging to Peaches were found. So Peaches was actually found in 2 separate locations. The child was also found wearing similar jewelry to that of the set that Peaches was wearing. So this is when they start tying in Tonya and Tatiana. February 2022. For nearly a decade after the discovery of the Gilgo 4, the investigation stalled. Until in February 2022, a new task force was formed by Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison and Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney. DA Tierney said, quote, a mere 6 weeks later, Rex Heuermann was identified for the first time, end quote. Now, there was a lot of turnover in the police departments. The documentary does talk about that. I don't want to ruin the documentary for anybody that wants to watch it. But the documentary had a different type of spin on it that was very much police corruption. And that's all I'll say.
Okay.
How did investigators get a suspect in 6 weeks? Well, it turns out that the original case files were a number of critical clues that the new task force was finally able to connect. Costello's roommate, Dave, if you recall me telling you about that, described one of Costello's clients and the type of vehicle he drove to investigators. The vehicle was the first-gen Chevy Avalanche. With the description of an ogre-like man and the make and model of his truck, police took a closer look at Costello's phone records from 2010. Shaler, which is Dave, had told them that before Costello disappeared, there was one client that called her incessantly. Police back then knew the client was using a burner phone, and they knew that Brainerd Barnes, Bartholomew, Costello, and Waterman had all been in contact with burner numbers right before they disappeared. In 2012, with the help of the FBI, now notice I've never said the FBI were involved before.
No.
So this is where that police corruption comes into play. So we've been finding bodies for about 2 years now, and the FBI has never been involved. So now the FBI is involved. The police determined that most of those calls connected to cell towers inside a small area of Massapequa Park, Long Island, and they called this area the Box. According to DA Tierney, the Box consisted of a couple of blocks within Massapequa Park. Here is the tie-in with Tonya and Tatiana at this point. Again, there's still unknown identifications, but on October 8th, 2022, the Mobile Police Department announced over Facebook that they were looking for relatives of Elijah Lizzie Howell Howard, 1927 to 1963. He lived in Mobile, Alabama with his wife Carrie and died in 1963. It was believed that friends and relatives of him could help in identifying Peaches and her child. May 19th, 2023, armed with their small radius of the box and the description of an ogre-like man that drove a Chevy Avalanche, the task force now had a prime suspect. Police identified an architect named Rex Heuermann as the man they believed may have been responsible for the murders. I have a picture of him you can include.
Okay.
And when they looked at Heuermann's personal cell phone records, they say that his phone was in the same area as those burner phones, literally right next to each other, by the way, when they were used to contact victims. They also say that when the burner phones contacted victims, they were often in Massapequa Park, where Heuermann lived, or Midtown Manhattan, where his architectural firm was located.
Huh. Okay.
So he is an architect. And if you recall the profile of the other serial killer, he said he's going to be some sort of contractor of some sort. And there you have it. In
Dang.
2023, they noticed Huerman going into a phone store to make payment on a burner phone. And detectives tailing Rex Huerman recovered his DNA from a pizza crust box. Listen to this. That he discarded in a Manhattan trash can. So I just want to say, just from a forensic standpoint, that anything that's discarded in a public place, even if it's out in your garbage, is fair game for evidence. But it's got to be collected appropriately. It can't be left in your garbage can overnight or anything like that. They would have to immediately extract it. But anyways, they collected it immediately as they were dressed as undercover as sanitation workers. Police
Wow.
began to tail Huerman, and when he threw out a pizza box into the trash can with the in Midtown Manhattan, investigators found that Huerman's DNA on the pizza crust was consistent with the DNA profile found on a male hair discovered with Megan Waterman's body.
No
With
way.
DNA evidence, along with the cell phone records linking Huerman to the burner phones, officers made an arrest. Now, at that point in time, they only had Megan, okay? July 14th, 2023, Rex Huerman, 59 years old at that time, of Massapequa Park, Long Island, was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. He was also named as the prime suspect in the death of Maureen Brainerd Barnes and was subsequently charged with her murder in January of 2024. On June 6, 2024, Huerman was arraigned and charged with the murders of Jessica Taylor and Sandra Castillo. Castillo's murder had not been previously linked to the Gilgo Beach serial killings. And with this development, the timeline of the case reached back to early 1990s, much further than previously thought by police. In December 2024, Huerman was indicted for the 2000 murder of Valerie Mack. Huerman had pleaded not guilty on all accounts. When asked about Huerman's innocence at a press conference, Huerman's attorney Michael Brown said, quote, "What has my client told me? He told me he didn't do this," end quote. An excavator was seen at the home of Rex Huerman. Rex's house didn't fit in on the block. His house stood out like a sore thumb. It was like a blast from the past. It was a house from the 60s and it was never maintained. But everyone else's houses were like our houses, like just really nicely painted. Everything looked nice. There was like, what do you call those? Oh my goodness, my brain, it does not work. Shutters, like the shutter thing would be sideways, kicked off. Like it looked awful. Anyways, according to law enforcement sources, investigators were looking into whether any victims may have been killed at the house. Police spent 12 days looking through Huerman's house, pulling guns out of the basement and digging in the backyard. Another important piece of evidence taken into possession was a first-gen Chevy Avalanche registered to Huerman at the time of the murders.
It's not looking good for you, dude.
It was sitting on property he owns in South Carolina when they recovered it. Also, his searches were that of the investigation and even into the family members of the victims. He also had document reminders to, quote, "remove, destroy tattoos," end quote. So Rex was sort of a hoarder. He had off-site storage sites that were searched to include the homes he owned in South Carolina and Nevada. But did he have opportunity to kill? He was a married man. He had a daughter, a stepson, and his second wife, and her name was Asa, I think, Ellerup. Ellerup, who was born in Iceland, would take the children to see her family there in the summers. So it was during these trips and others that the police believed that Huerman killed the women.
Oh, yeah.
The family still claims they had absolutely no idea. They recently signed a huge contract for a TV deal over the matter, and there is also rumors that the wife battled breast cancer. Now, all of that I don't know is true, but apparently she was sick for a little bit too, I guess. Huerman was arraigned in Suffolk County Court in Riverhead, New York. He pleaded not guilty to the murders of Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. The judge ordered that he be held without bail in a Suffolk County jail where he is currently awaiting trial. Investigators hope that the arrest can give victims' families a sense of peace. The police commissioner, Harrison, stated, quote, "He took away somebody's mother, somebody's daughter, somebody's sister, not just one person, multiple individuals, end quote. Other investigations took place. They spread to South Carolina and Las Vegas, where Huerman owned property. And with detectives there, they were taking a fresh look at cases of missing women. Huerman has not been charged in any additional investigations at this point. There is a woman who swears that her best friend disappeared by that man that fits his description in South Carolina. As for other bodies found near Gilgo Beach, Jessica Taylor, Valerie Mack, Karen Vergata, Peaches, the toddler, and the Asian male, none of them have been linked to Huerman at this point.
Hmm.
Baby
Yeah, there's
Doe.
probably more victims out there.
Oh my gosh.
that
I can
wasn't even
almost
discovered.
guarantee you. I can
Yeah.
almost guarantee you that, Nyoka. And that's kind of what the documentary says too, is that if they kept looking, I bet you they would find more.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So Tatiana and everybody was actually found next to Valerie Mack. So the baby was actually found next to Valerie Mack. The baby was the farthest body found eastward, with Tonya being the farthest found westward. Again, Tonya was found in 2 different locations, by the way. DNA from Huerman's cheek swab matches the DNA that authorities had previously collected from the pizza crust. So they got that to the victims. And then in September 27th, 2023, in that court appearance is when that DNA sample came out, and they disputed the significance of that DNA sample. January 16th, 2024, which was 6 months after his arrest, Rex Huerman was indicted on the death of a 4th victim, which was Maureen. Investigators said they linked Brainerd Barnes' murder to Huerman via the DNA from a female hair found in the buckle of a belt used to bind her ankles, feet, and legs. 8 trillion to 1 that it matched Huerman's wife or daughter, who was tailed on a commuter train and threw out an energy drink, according to court documents. Prosecutors made it clear they believe all hair transfer were made from Huerman to his alleged victims, and the family was out of town for the murders of the Gilgo Beach 4. Huerman has pleaded not guilty to the murders. June 6, 2024, Huerman was charged with the killing of 2 more women 10 years apart on Long Island, the 1993 murder of Sandra Castillo and the 2003 murder of Jessica Taylor. Castillo's death was not previously tied to the Gilgo case, and the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office says DNA from hair found near Castillo and Taylor's remains and the pickup truck evidence connect Huerman to their killings. Huerman has also pleaded not guilty to all charges. On December 17th, 2024, Huerman was charged with the killing of Valerie Mack, a 24-year-old from New Jersey who had been working as an escort in Philly in 2000. And for years, she was only known as Jane Doe number 6. Her partial remains were found in Manorville, Long Island in 2000, and more of her remains were found on Gilgo Beach more than 10 years later. In April 2025, it was announced that Peaches had been identified as 26-year-old Tonya Denise Jackson. Her daughter, Tatiana Dykes, was also identified as being Baby Doe, and their murders remain an active investigation. To this day, active investigation, though nobody has been charged. When Tanya's body was recovered, it was in Ziploc bags inside of a plastic tote, so evidence was preserved. Police didn't comment if they believe the murders related to Huerman, but they aren't ruling it out, like I stated earlier. Now, a little bit more about Tatiana. Tatiana's father was also identified and has been cooperative with law enforcement. He and her family and friends, babysitters, never reported her missing, which I think is odd.
That's very odd.
Yep. So she was never reported missing like that. So it just seems odd to me. As of April 2025, Rex Huerman now stands accused of murdering 7 women. So where is the alleged Long Island serial killer now, and what's the latest on his trial? If you watch Netflix's new docu-series Gone Girls, The Long Island Serial Killer, the series covers the years-long investigation that ultimately led to Huerman's high-profile arrest in 2023. But it stops there, by the way, while also examining how the stigma surrounding the victim's work as escorts may have slowed the pace of the case. I won't spoil it for you. Give it a watch. More on Rex. I have another picture you can include of him. Rex Heuermann was born and raised on Long Island, and he attended Berner High School in Massapequa Park. Former classmates told the New York Times in 2003 that he had a troubled home life and was bullied for being a loner. And one person even described him as everybody's punching bag because he never fit in with any specific clique. Heuermann studied architectural technology at the New York Institute of Technology before launching his own architectural consulting firm in Manhattan. In the 1990s, he purchased his childhood home in Massapequa Park and married Asa Ellerup.
What year did he marry?
1990, in the 1990s. Though he later admitted in a deposition that he had been married once before. He, Ellerup, their daughter, and Heuermann's stepson have lived in the house ever since. According to Long Island Press, neighbors describe the family as distant and the home as creepy. Quote, the family is very to themselves, quiet. We never saw anything suspicious, end quote, stated the neighbor Frankie Musto. Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison told CNN that when Ellerup and her daughter were informed about the crimes that Heuermann was accused of, the pair were shocked, they were disgusted, and they were embarrassed. As of April 1st, 2025, Heuermann is being held in a 60-square-foot cell at Riverhead Correctional Facility in Suffolk County, New York, as he awaits trial. While no official trial date has been set, Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney told ABC7 that the case is heading toward the trial phase, with Heuermann now facing a single indictment that includes 7 murder charges. In a March 2025 exclusive interview with People, Suffolk County Sheriff Dr. Errol D. Towlin Jr., might have butchered the name, shared that Heuermann has become more acclimated with jail life since entering the facility. Quote, for the most part, it just seems like this is a new way of life for him. In the beginning, he was a little bit more starry-eyed as to his surroundings, and life has transformed over the last several months. He receives visits, he makes phone calls, and he doesn't congregate with the rest of the population because of the crimes he's accused of, end quote. He also continued that, quote, I think he lived his double life. Oh, he used the anonymous phone calls and computers to shield himself from the rest of society. And unfortunately for him, unfortunately for the rest of us, he wasn't successful, end quote. Less than a week after Heuermann's arrest in 2023, his wife filed for divorce. However, she has since begun visiting him about once a week and is also participating in a multi-part documentary that will follow her journey throughout Heuermann's upcoming trial. Within the first 3 or 4 months of his incarceration, she did not visit him, and it wasn't until after that she started visiting more frequently. In late March, Heuermann and his wife finalized a divorce settlement. According to prosecutors from the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, Ellerup and the couple's children were out of town at the time the victims were killed. Quote, she has a difficult time throughout this whole process believing the husband that she was married to for 29 years now was capable of committing these horrific acts, end quote. And that came from Ellerup's attorney, Robert Macedonio. It is even more concerning that her hair and her daughter's hair were found on some of these victims. So this process is very important to getting closure for her and her family. Now, I just want to do a side note real quick regarding the evidence and the daughter's hair and the wife's hair. Yes, the attorney stating that it is concerning. I just want you to know that anytime you come in contact with something, there is a transfer of evidence.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's for a second or for 30 seconds. Now, mind you, if you're in contact with somebody for 5 minutes, that's a longer time frame. So the amount of DNA might be, a better sample. However, anytime you come in contact with something, no matter the length of time, there is a transfer of evidence.
Yeah.
So that doesn't surprise me. One thing I want to drive home with this episode is these are humans. Regardless of the profession, they are humans, and their profession, much like anyone else's, was to make a better life for themselves and their family. So here we are with a Crime Stoppers report for Tonya and Tatiana. Are they victims of Rex? The end.
That was nuts.
Dude, it was so hard. It was so hard because you'd uncover something and then they would talk about Shannon and then they would talk about and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, what? And of course, I didn't watch the documentary because I didn't have Netflix at the time anyway. And I was like, man, I'm going to do all these notes and then I'm going to watch the documentary because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to see what I can find first. And I will tell you, I found nothing like the documentary was pointing out for police corruption. I never found that at all. So,
I
it
mean, if
just
anything, they just ignored the victims because
correct.
of their line of work, which goes back to Jack the Ripper days, like this is a
Absolutely.
common theme in that field, it seems.
And it's common, and I understand. I don't want to say this out loud, but I'm going to say it.
Mhm.
It's common for this field because these women can just up and leave. They can be
Yeah.
in New York City one day and be in Philly the next day. I mean, it's not uncommon for them to be transient. But at the same time, I mean, I know my daughter. You know what I mean? Like I I don't
Yeah.
know. That's just kind of how
The
I
thing
feel.
that throws me off, though, is the toddler. I just don't know. Like,
She may not be tied to it, although I do want to admit that they did say that they aren't ruling him out either.
it's just so weird that the
And she was
toddler's dad and
dismembered.
stuff did not
Mm-hmm.
report her. I don't
Right.
know. I don't know. That doesn't sit right with me. I don't know.
No.
Sorry.
Nope.
Ugh. All right. That was interesting.
Thank you.
That was crazy.
It I just hope that, pushing their picture out and things like that might get more information on Tanya and Tatiana.
You never know. Someone
I
knows
know.
something. That reminds me of a podcast I used to listen to. I'm sure they're still around, but it's called Someone Knows Something. And the podcast host would kind of like work on cold cases almost, where he would go to that hometown and people that knew that person and like convince that someone knew something that was that was
Yeah.
going on. It was interesting, but anyways, it has nothing to do with anything. So yeah, good episode. If you can't get enough Operation Evil, consider supporting the podcast by joining our Patreon. Regardless of what tier you pick, you will have a shout out from us and at least one bonus episode every month that is exclusive to our supporters. We currently have over 40 bonus episodes ready for you to binge over there, and the link to join can be found in our show notes. If you can't join our Patreon, consider buying us a coffee, or you can support us for free by rating our show, telling a friend about our show, or like and share our Facebook page. We appreciate each and every one of you, and we'll be back next time with a new episode. Goodbye.
Goodbye.